everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew and very excited today to bring you guys into the continuation series of Breaking into Cyber, a pen tester this go around by the name of Makayla Ferrell. Ferrell. I'm make sure I say that last name correct. She is a seasoned cybersecurity professional with a background in software engineering, application security, and penetration testing. Currently serving as a penetration tester and subject matter expert at Leidos, she is dedicated to identifying and mitigating vulnerabilities to strengthen security defenses. Makayla began her career as a software engineer, but her passion for problem solving and curiosity led her to transition into cybersecurity. In this role, she has discovered zero-day vulnerabilities and identified critical security issues, contributing to improved security postures across various systems. Beyond her professional work, Makayla is committed to giving back through volunteering. She teaches programming, robotics, and cybersecurity certification courses through nonprofits, helping to educate and inspire the next generation of tech professionals. Her dedication to continuous learning and knowledge sharing makes her a valuable asset in the ever-evolving cybersecurity landscape. And Makayla, we are so glad to have you on the channel tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
So as my channel kind of runs into of breaking into cyber, we're going to kind of start with the very first question to kind of hear your origin story. So what brings you to cybersecurity? Not everyone wants to do that growing up. We want to be lawyers and nurses and doctors. But at some point in time, you decided to dedicate yourself to this field. Kind of what spun that?
Yeah, so I, after college, was a software engineer and I loved programming at first, but then I got a little bored and I started asking around of like, what were people doing? Like, what were they doing where they enjoyed their jobs? And I ended up at DEF CON, which is a really big hacking conference if you have it. And I competed in one of their CTFs and I was like, this is way more fun to me than programming was. So I started making the switch from there. And luckily I was working as an Army civilian and I had a lot of flexibility to rotate between teams. So I just found the Army Red Team and they were nice enough to take me in as an intern. And I was able to learn a lot about like how red teams work, how pen testing work, and find like the niche part of pen testing that I enjoyed. And then once I was done with my time with the Army civilian, I became a full-on pen tester in the private sector and then eventually back to government to where I am now.
Nice. So do you remember what DEF CON you went to?
Yes, I went to the first one after COVID. So I think 2021. Yes. And it was the one that they had a girls hack village and it was really welcoming, really great. I did the biohacking CTF. And
awesome. Was that the keyboard badge I think that I have hanging up on my wall, if you recall? Okay, awesome. We were there at the same time. That was also my first DEF CON after COVID, which it was so weird because I heard people kind of explain oh, it's so good to be back because COVID, I think took it the year before to like a remote online COVID, or I don't even know if they had it. But yeah, I got to go. I was like a kid in a candy store. I don't know if you were the same way. Obviously you were in the village doing your CTF. I was walking around with my buddy. I was going to random villages. I was asking questions, networking. And to those who don't know what DEF CON is, just like Makayla mentioned, it is a huge hacker conference that has keynote speakers, a ton of different villages, red team village, blue team village, lockpick village, soldering village. You get to solder and make badges. Social engineering village, a ton of different CTFs, hack satellite, biohacking. And for those that don't understand or really know what they really want to do into cyber, it can be a lot if you go by yourself. I always recommend if you do, just be willing to talk to people and ask questions. But I know for this coming year, there'll actually be a new village that I'll be getting to help co-host called Noob Village. Shout out to Josh Mason, who will be helping run that village to our newcomers that have never been to a DEF CON before. They'll be meet a red team hacker. There'll be blue teamers there for questions. No dumb question booth where you can ask any cybersecurity question you want to try to figure out how you want to get into the field, and much more. So, well, Makayla, that's awesome. And obviously, as we mentioned with your bio reading in, like you like to get back to the community. I know you said you teach robotics and programming and cybersecurity certificate training. Do you have a specific training you like to teach the most? And if so, why?
Oh, this is a great question. So I love teaching robotics to kids. I think it's great when they see like the spark of like, oh, I can do this. I can make a robot work. I can put the parts together. But I also love teaching people who are switching into cyber from those fields like healthcare or other fields where there's not as many applicable skills and they're really learning from scratch, because it challenges you to teach in a way that you maybe didn't learn yourself, or use different terms or know which ones are technical terms that you don't even realize you're using. Or like for me, because I'm in the government space, I use acronyms all the time.
Yes.
And you don't even realize you're doing it after a while. So it's nice because once you teach those different audiences, you really get to know your craft and you get to know more about yourself as you're teaching them and trying to find new ways to engage the audience.
Would you say getting to teach more has also almost helped refine and hone your skills? Like I know a lot of people say, hey, once you get into a field, being able to teach the material, and just like you said, so many different people learn in different ways. So you also get to, it really challenges you as like a mentor and also a professor or a teacher to find which way works for each student. Have you found that kind of difficult sometimes, or have you learned a pretty decent, well-rounded way to kind of make sure that you're hitting all like the learning, like the hands-on, readers, I can't remember all the type of learning types, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah. When I first started, it was very difficult. I felt like I was trying to answer the question in a way that I would understand more so than they would understand. But once I got into the gist of it, I started keeping a blog that does a walkthrough of the things we're working on in class. So even if you're not following along to me doing like the hands-on version, you can just go to my Medium and go down step by step of what's going on. And I make sure the Medium's very beginner friendly. There's no terms that aren't defined. Everything's like easy to follow. And once I started doing that, I learned that it's a lot easier because even if they're not keeping up in like the Zoom or they're not following in the lesson, they can follow on their own timeline at home.
Shout out to your Medium. What is your
Oh, it's just Makayla Ferrell.
Oh, too easy. That's easy to remember. Awesome.
Fun tag,
We'll
but
make
yeah.
sure we'll make sure we drop that in the comments if you decide to go check out Makayla's write-up. So super cool. So CTFs, the importance of CTFs, certifications, education. Some would call it the trifecta of breaking into cyber. Do you think one holds more weight than the other, and why?
I think certifications hold more weight than your degrees. And that's just because a lot of the education you get is computer science focused more so than cyber solely focused. So you're not going to get as dedicated of a learning skill set as when you did a certification that's specifically for cybersecurity. I will say, I think CTFs are great. I think some of them are better than others. There's great beginner friendly ones. There's great competitions, but some of them just aren't very well known for you to get out there and for you to use them to get a job. There are great ones if you're looking to get into the government space. If you do Cyber Sentinel competition, at the end they give job offers. If you do US Cyber Games or National Cyber League, any of those can lead to job offers in the government space. So a lot of people forget about like a CTF can get you to a job. It's just, I think a cert probably holds more weight and it's probably an easier pathway for most people.
Yeah, I know there's such a heavy weight in the community when it comes to certifications, when it comes to experience. And it's like, I think the same way, kind of like, I think certifications do hold and belong in the industry. And it's kind of sad to say, but it's like to get through the HR algorithm and to meet the requirements to get into some entry level roles or higher roles, having the certifications just show that you understand the material, you've passed a proctored exam to show off the material that you can do. Now, the thing I always emphasize though, when it comes to certifications, like you can have 5 SANS certs on your wall, you can have 5 CompTIA certs on the wall, and you can have an alphabet behind your name. But if you're not retaining the information and being able to learn and actually do it, and Bree Frost said it the best way, and I love this. She's like, you're never going to be doing a pen test on a network like router, where all of a sudden it's going to be like, in order to get past this router, what must you do? A, like bypass the router. B, it's going to be actually doing the hands-on material that you learned or the material that you had to read and figure out to execute. So, but like, I'm right there with you when like, I do think certifications do hold more weight than I'd even say education. Like some people say, oh, I need to get my bachelor's, I have to get my master's. I'm like, a bachelor's degree helps, especially when in the government field sometimes and getting into certain organizations that require that for a position. And maybe if you're trying to promote up and become a manager, but a lot of entry level roles, if you can show off the material, and I always say Security Plus was that gateway cert to get into the industry. I now think it's elevated to the CYSA. When it comes to standard wise, I think the Security Plus maybe 5, 8 years ago was that baseline, but with everything moving forward, AI, more complex attacks going on with your threat actors and script kiddies or AI script kiddies now that are trying to get more dangerous and more into these systems. I think having that stronger fundamental knowledge is what a lot of organizations look for when it comes into these basic roles. I'm sure you've seen it when you were trying to maybe pivot outside of the Army civilian program, trying to apply for jobs. They want 5 years of experience, 3 certifications, understanding of 5 or 6 different tools, which I think Makayla and I can both probably say pretty confidently, like, are those good, important things? Yes. Is that a unicorn post? Absolutely. Most places will never find that And I'll say most, but many places won't find someone that knows every single thing listed on a resume. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think the job search is so hard when you're starting out because you think you have to match everything on there. But a lot of people forget you can still apply. Like you never know what'll happen.
Yes.
You don't have to just apply for the ones that say junior. You don't have to just apply for the ones where you match 100%. I was told in college, if you match 3/4, go ahead and submit the application. Like that's good enough for you to at least shoot your shot. Right. But I think the other thing is I have a master's and I can tell you that no one has asked about it in the interview. They've asked about my search. They've asked about GWAP. They've asked about all the pen testers, but no one's brought up my master's at all. So I hate to say it, but in this field, yeah, it does come down to the certifications most of the time. And a lot of times people forget that your experience can also be try hacking rooms. Your experience can be doing your write-up on like a box that you did that's similar to an environment that you would see at a customer. Like it doesn't have to be 10 years working in the field. You can find other ways to show them the experience because what they really want to see is that you have the skills and that you've done it. So
do you have a certain training platform or maybe environment that you like to leverage? Or like when you have your mentees ask you like, hey, Makayla, what can I do to start showing off these skills? Do you lean toward a specific training site or like program, some might say, than more than the other?
I lean towards Try Hack Me more than Hack the Box for beginners. I think Try Hack Me is just a little more beginner friendly. The write-ups and walkthroughs are just easier to parse if you're someone without a cybersecurity knowledge. And I think Hack the Box, people are so focused on finding the flags versus there's some Try Hack Me rooms where there maybe aren't even flags. It's just explaining the tool to you. And that comes very helpful. But I think one of the bigger things I have people do is really just do a bunch of CTFs. Because I feel like when you do a room, you know the theme of the room, you know where it's going, you know, like if it's called like FTV, like let me check this port. Like so you're getting hints along the way. But a CTF, it most of the time is really like you don't get a hint. They just give you a random file and they say go.
Yeah.
And that type of knowledge is just really helpful in this industry.
There's been some CTFs like me and my friends have done, and even that the Army will put together and like my unit will put together. But once and like it's OB theme based, but we don't know the theme. But then it's like, I know I did one where it was Ted Lasso themed. So all the folders and the things we had to go to were all based off of the series Ted Lasso, which I have never really watched. So it's like, we're going through and one man's like, oh my gosh, this is a Ted Lasso. Our red team's doing Ted Lasso as like their flags and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I know who he is. I know the show. Don't know any of the sayings. Don't know the characters. Like, oh man, dude. Yeah. So like all of our accounts that got popped were all based off Ted Lasso themed character names. So we were able to kind of quickly piece together what they were doing. But I think that's exactly right. Like I kind of have the same mentality. Try Hack Me has a very much kind of like crawl, walk, run. They hold your hand a little bit more with all of the walkthroughs. There's already a lot of write-ups already done via through Medium, YouTube videos. Where Hack the Box, once the box is the same thing for, I think Try Hack Me, you can do a write-up as soon as one pops. But for Hack the Box, they don't release the write-ups until I think after it gets taken down, after a few, I think, months or so for folks to actually go in blind and really kind of go at it. Do you think that when it comes into becoming a red teamer, do you think becoming a pen tester would be more beneficial for someone to start off as like a SOC analyst or maybe doing help desk? Or do you think if someone really wants to get into it and do a pivot or get into that field, they can start right away as a junior penetration tester?
I think it would depend on the certs they took. If they took more of the Pen Test Plus or CEH route where it's not hands-on, you didn't have to actually prove your skills, maybe it's good to get some hands-on knowledge as a SOC or something like that. But if you're doing OSCP or ECPBT, those tests where they literally just give you a network range and you're doing the job, then I feel more comfortable going straight into penetration testing because it really is just you need to be able to do it without someone holding your hand. And the way to showcase that is either doing a cert that forces you to do it or doing it in like a job role. I do think the other thing is when you're going for a pen test role, you want to make sure that you're targeting your resume towards that. And you don't want to like, if you do 5 years of help desk first, your resume is going to read as a help desk professional and it's going to be harder to switch into pen testing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to tell anyone like, oh, go to SOC first for 3 years and then switch because then you're making it harder because your resume reads as a SOC analyst and they're going to want to hire you in that position. So I would say just get the hands-on certs, focus less on the maybe like multiple choice certifications because they don't hold as much weight in this field as they do other places.
Yeah. And I think, and I can't emphasize enough, like hands-on keys and being able to walk through processes and it'll lead up to our next question, Makayla, when it comes into report writing, when it comes to penetration testing, soft skills, being able to know that on top of, okay, well, I need to know certain tool like burp sweep, nmap, port swigger, metasploit, PowerShell, Python. Understanding those things are important, but also being able to be articulate and write solid reports. Because at the end of the day, being a pen tester is not just putting your fingers on keys, throwing the hoodie up saying, hey guys, I'm in. It's writing that penetration testing report that at the end of the day, that's really what your client or your targeted audience needs to see. So when you're doing these penetration tests for organizations or companies, it's awesome the back end of what you get to do. Like, oh man, I just did this like cross-site scripting, or I was able to bypass their firewall. Well, now make sure you're grabbing those screenshots, make sure you're taking those notes, because I recall being a left seat, right seat with one of our red teamers. We went in like 30 minutes, like he was so far, he's like, crap. I'm like, what's up? He's like, I haven't taken any notes or any screenshots of anything I just did. Because you just get so excited, like getting into an environment or getting into like an objective where you're like, oh man, like I'm like 5 steps in and it's like, oh shoot, now I need to backstep, document what you're doing. Did you find that difficult or maybe hard to grasp for your first few like operations or ops? Or did you kind of have that mindset jumping in like, okay, I need to make sure I'm standardized and systematic, writing out my findings, doing my step-by-step. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my box. I'm going to then go onto the range. I'm going to try nmap. What's your kind of thought process when it comes into writing those reports, and how have you gotten better, you think, from day one to now where you're at in your career?
Yeah, I will say when I first started, I did not screenshot enough. I was someone who like, oh, I have a finding, let me screenshot now. But the steps to get there, gone. And then some jobs want you to write a narrative. And so I didn't write down any of the steps to get me there. But with
I found this. It's like,
you get so excited. You're in there. You're like, let me just find a vulnerability. And you forget like, oh, they probably want to see proof of work. Like maybe they need their billables. But for me, I started doing track rooms and hack the boxes and forcing myself to write down what I was doing, taking notes just for myself, not even like posting to my blog yet. Just when I do a box, write down my steps, write down the commands I use, screenshot every step. So if someone came back after me, they'd know what I did. And that helped a lot. Just forcing yourself to do it so that when you're in your work environment, you also do it. Another thing is just, I used to set timers. Every 10 minutes, the timer go off. I was like, oh, did I screenshot in the last 10 minutes? Have I?
smart.
No. Then I need to go back. But yeah, just setting a timer and taking notes when you're doing boxes will probably set you up for success. But the soft skills are really important. I think people forget that you have to tell the client your findings. Like you can't just find your flag and then be done. And then a lot of times they're going to go back and forth with you. They're going to want the criticality to lower. They're going to want like, oh, are you sure this is a high? Are you sure this affects the system? We thought we patched that, things like that. And you have to be able to explain to someone who's maybe not technical, hey, this is a big flaw. This is how you fix it. Your old patch didn't work. Update this. And it's hard to do at first because you are telling someone, no, listen to me. But well, it gets easier with time. But those soft skills are really important.
Well, awesome, Makayla. And when it comes into mentoring and being a mentor, do you have a mentor currently? And then obviously you do mentoring, I'm assuming, with your background and giving back obviously to the community. But for those that are trying to break into the field, like that's one piece of advice I kind of give. And I say leverage your LinkedIn. Like find that person that's in your next jump. If you're already in the field and you want to be a pen tester, find someone that's in pen testing, connect on LinkedIn, write them a short message saying, hey, I'd love to connect and just talk. But to those trying to find mentors and trying to maybe even be the mentor for mentees, what kind of advice do you like to give, and would you like give on folks trying to find those kind of mentors?
Yeah, I found my mentor through Blacks in Cyber. They have a mentor match program that you don't have to be Black or in Cyber to join the program. Don't worry. And they'll match you with someone. And they matched me with a CNO developer who was writing exploits. And he's really great. And he walked me through just my transitioning steps. So I think finding a mentor is amazing. A lot of organizations have like internal mentorship programs. Another thing is at the company you work for, you can go up to people in the cyber department. Like you don't have to find someone really high up on LinkedIn. You can find someone that's in your organization or in what you already know. So it's a little easier to bridge the gap, because it's easier to send someone a message like, hey, I work for this team and I'm interested in what you do, than it is to like cold call someone on LinkedIn and hope they respond. That being said, still do it. I've had people reach out to me that I now mentor and they just shot me a message on LinkedIn and I said yes. So I I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And sometimes people just message you off another referral asking to come on a channel because we oddly enough both work for Leidos, and it's like, oh, cool, I can reach out to Makayla and say hi. So
yeah, you never know. Like, just go for it, I think is the thing. The other thing is you want to find your mentor after you know what you want to do, because you want your mentor to be in the field you're going to. Cyber is so big that you can't just say, oh, they work in cyber, let them be my mentor. Because there's offensive, defensive, there's hands-on, there's less technical jobs. Like, there's just too much of a space for you to go in blind and ask a mentor to like fill in the gaps for you.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks I've talked to, like they want to get into compliance, like GRC, and I'm like, that's awesome. I don't do GRC really. I'd say I know it, being part of like our blue team and like SOC 2 and NIST standards and CMMF 2.0. But like to pull up the list, like, oh, how is this meeting this compliance levels and such? Yeah, that's not my role. Same thing, like when people are like, I want to be a pen tester. I'm like, well, I know the fundamentals and like I understand pen testing because I find red teamers in my environment, but I'm not the one out there writing exploits, running Nmap, doing the exploitations. That's Makayla's job. So that's what a lot of things come down to too. When it comes into same thing when folks reach out to me asking to, hey, can you mentor me, or this is what I want to do? I'm like, well, first off, exactly like you said, what do you want to do? It's such a huge realm of what we live in with cybersecurity. There's compliance, there's DLP, there's DevSec, there's red teamers, there's audit. I mean, you name it. There's a position that probably cyber there's sled and sales. I know I have a few folks getting ready to come on the channel that like they work for companies like Elastic or Google that sell those SIMs and SOARs, that you think about that like, oh, well, that's a sales position. I'm like, yeah, but you still have to be able to talk on what you're selling. And some of them are previous pen testers or previous DevSec ops or previous engineers that know what that tool is doing in order to talk to that next client to say, hey, look, this is why we use this tool. This is how it's collecting your logs. This is how it's meeting this level of compliance. This is how it's collecting this for you to review. And it's hard. People come up to me all the time like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, neither did I really. And then I really enjoyed cyber threat intel analyst like stuff, like writing up and looking at MITRE and building out threat profiles. And then with my previous background as a police officer, I was really good at reports. I liked doing report writing. I liked finding bad and finding the bad red teamers in my environment, saying that's not supposed to be there. Get out of here. Was fun to me. And I think a lot of people understand, or they don't understand that like anyone can get into cybersecurity. Some people think it's such a complex career to jump into, but I think honestly, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this, Makayla, but you just have to be curious and you have to ask questions and you just have to be willing to learn. I think yourself and myself will probably be learning the next 10, 15 years we're in this field because there's new CVEs that drop, there's new exploits, there's new tools that our teams want to acquire and use that either collect logs, they do X so Y can happen. But bringing into tools though, Makayla, do you have a favorite tool when doing pen testing?
I do actually. There's a tool that my manager actually showed me after I joined Leidos, and it's called Eyewitness. And what it'll do is you give it like a giant list of IKs or websites, and it'll go in and it'll screenshot the homepage for you and make it a cute little report, and you can just open it up and go through. When I'm doing tests of an entire LAN A, I don't have time to check each website. I just don't. So that tool just streamlines stuff for me so fast. It's an amazing tool. I love it. Other than that, I use Nuclei because I think it's a very powerful web application tool, and the templates in Nuclei are easily adaptable and cover a wide breadth of knowledge. Burp Suite, of course. I feel like everybody has to have a good proxy.
Yep.
You have to do it. Let me try to think. I have a Flipper Zero. I will say I do use it.
What's your favorite? Have you done any cool add-ons to your Flipper Zero?
I haven't done any add-ons to my Flipper Zero, but I have customized the rubber ducky that comes from Hack 5. And I basically made it into a mini Flipper Zero before Flipper Zero came out. And that was where all my modifications came in. But yeah, I do need to modify it. I saw they just came out with a new version. So I think I want to buy that and then start playing with it more.
A few of my friends picked them up and I haven't gotten one yet. And like I don't have the need for it. Like other than like a cool toy to play around here at the house, turn off some TVs and whatnot, open my buddy's Tesla's gas port. I have no need for a Flipper Zero at this point. So
the NFC scanning part of it is really helpful. Forget your keys. Don't worry, your Flipper has your key. Like the weird household uses, you know?
What is one misconception of cybersecurity that some people think of it being too hard to get in, or that I can't make this transition right now, even though I have a really deep passion for it, but it's just too hard? Like, what would you tell those people?
I think the biggest misconception is that you need a background in like computer science. You need like the years of experience that these people have to switch in. You don't. The environment's ever changing. So their experience that they got for 4 years in college probably doesn't even apply nowadays to what they're doing. So you shouldn't feel like your experience isn't helpful. I also think people forget that skills are transferable. Like there's a lot of skills you probably do in your job now before you transition that apply to things we do in cybersecurity. I think it's just this title that they put on it, and it gets very like inflated of what it is. But the field's big. There's something for everybody, even if you're not a technical person. There's jobs in cyber for everyone.
No, definitely. And then we talked about conferences at the beginning of this conversation. Do you have any favorite conferences that you like to go to, or any that you plan on attending this year?
B-sides. Find your local B-side.
Yeah.
I think it's just a great one. And usually they're small, so it's not as big as DEF CONs. You can really make those connections and have conversations, and people will help you. You just can't be scared to ask questions. You have to go into a conference with an open mind and just wanting to network and meet people.
Do you plan on, have you ever submitted or have you done any talks on B-side talks or any other cons coming up?
No,
Any call for
I'm in the
papers?
CTFs. I'm in the CTFs. I go there and I'm the person in the corner on their laptop getting all the flags. So I haven't submitted. I have too much fun at the conferences.
What's the best CTF team flag, like team name you've had at doing your CTFs? Is there a go-to handle you use that you're willing to share? Or is there like a cool team name that you always try to grab before everyone else locks it in?
I was on a team and we were doing a crypto CTF, and you had to make your name in ASCII characters. And we found a way to make an ASCII elephant. And it wasn't very cute. And I don't think you could tell it was an elephant. It might have just been like a fat horse, but that was my brand. It was just so unique. And I don't know, it stuck with me. So
Awesome, Makayla. Well, hey, another question we have for you. So I know we've talked previously that you enjoy kind of IoT hacking. Is there anything particular, I guess, that really kind of caught your fancy getting into that? Was it just the way you can do the research for it, of how you can compromise that kind of, I guess, piece of it when it comes into doing penetration testing, or kind of what made you kind of get really invested into that kind of realm of pen tests?
yeah, so I had started out loving web application hacking. And then on my current role, we do a lot of different types of pen tests. And we ended up on a physical pen test that included some IoT devices like cameras, fire alarm systems, things like that. And when I was dissecting it, I realized this is just a web app in disguise. It's using the same API calls, it's on the internet, and honestly, it's less protected because no one thinks about it. They just add it to their internet and they're like, oh, it's fine. And the things you see when you're doing IoT hacking, or when you just look into your printer, a lot of printers have an open port on an obscure like cert that just allows you to upload firmware. Like you can just overwrite your printer's firmware with no authentication at all on most systems. And there's things like that that once you start looking, you're like, what else can I find? Like what else is here? On like your IoT cameras where the admin portal is locked by a username and password, but the passwords is in the comments of the source code because they want to make you remember. Like there's things like that you're just like, wow, is this just low-hanging fruit that no one's touched? And then you end up just down the rabbit hole and you start buying these IoT cameras and hacking them, and then your closet is full of IoT devices.
What's been the coolest IoT device that you've been able to hack? If you can tell us.
Yeah, I was on an assessment with a farm of IoT cameras, and there's one main admin portal to control all of them. And I was just going through the usual like burp scans of the web app. And then I realized if you look at the traffic that you're using to log in, they're sending the account logout with a number. And if you just send a negative number, it resets it. So you can effectively just brute force your way in. That's what I did. I wrote a script to brute force every possible password. They had also leaked the variable type and size they were using for the password field. So I knew it only had to be up to 12 characters. So I went out, wrote for brute force, and it was able to get around that in like 2 minutes of runtime on a Python script. And I was able to control all the cameras. And I thought that was really funny because it was so random to just send a negative number with the password and now you're fine. You can log in as many times as you want.
That's so cool. And would you say that that skill came with a lot of practice and like a lot of time, or was that something that you kind of just stumbled upon? And then after like one or two times, like do they kind of get repetitive, I guess, when it comes into like that process of doing IoT hacking?
I think it's The same as web app. So I used the same methodology. So I didn't have to like relearn anything. It was just looking at it a different way. And I think that what it really is just looking at the traffic. I think looking at the traffic will get you very far in any pen test. And when you start looking and you start doing it more and more, you'll realize that doesn't look right, or this doesn't look like other systems I've seen, and maybe that's the problem. Or even just noticing that they didn't encrypt it at all. Like they didn't try. So it's really that simple. Yeah.
To flip that for the blue side, right? It's like understanding our security baseline, like know what your environment looks like on your baseline. What data goes out, what data comes in, what's your norm look like? Because exactly that, as soon as you start to see an irregular pattern or something like just like that one-off, like, well, we had all these denies, but there was these 2 allows. Why were these 2 things allowed, and what was that? I think it goes back to the aspect of asking why and just being able to dig in a little bit deeper sometimes for those that abnormal kind of traffic, and just like, oh, this could just be benign. Like, we'll do a little bit of diving. I'm sure you've been there as well, where it's like you go down the rabbit hole and you've just gone too many lefts and rights and you're like, okay, this was nothing. But then, however, then you'll find a few of those where you actually look into the anomalies and like, hey, this was red team, or hey, this is bad, or this is something we should be looking into and making more aware of, because this could lead to vulnerabilities. This could lead to a ransomware. This could lead to us being hacked. And understanding too, I think, when you guys are doing these pen tests, Makayla, do the remediations come fairly after on, does the red team, at least for you, do you guys help do remediation patching? Or is that always kind of just case by case basis on if another team wants to do patching on their own or do the remediations, or how's that look?
There is a remediation team that takes our tickets that we make from the pen test and then tracks them all the way to completion. There are a lot of times they do reach out to us and we walk them through like, hey, this is how you do it. If it's a 0 day, or if it's like a new protocol that doesn't have maybe as well-defined ways to fix things, we'll work with the developers and try to find a way to fix it. I know I've written some patches in some situations just because I was a developer before. And when you're on the call with them and they're like stressed because it's a high priority ticket, they're like, I don't know how to fix this. And it just ended up being, I can help you. I can write the code.
You're like, I got you.
Let's take a deep breath. It'll be okay. So yeah, we do help with remediation. We try to give as detail as we can in the report so that they don't have to come back to us. But a lot of times it is just like talking a developer down and helping them realize it's okay, you can fix it. It's fixable.
No, too awesome. Well, last piece, I guess 2 final questions I have for you to wrap this up. So when Makayla is not hacking and not doing cybersecurity stuff, what does she like to do for fun to unwind? What does she do when she's not mentoring, when she's not teaching, not hacking the newest exploit in the network? What do you do to relax?
Yeah, I travel a bunch. I've been to 28 countries and counting, and I hope to get that number up to 50 very soon. I also enjoy dancing. I was a cheerleader in college and then became a professional MASL cheerleader after that, and that takes up a good amount of my time. And then other than that, just Netflix. I think binging TV shows is the go-to.
What's the best show or new show you're on right now?
Right now I'm watching Arrow with my boyfriend.
Okay.
It's good. I think the plot got a little shaky in season 3, but we're coming back on the other side of season.
Well, awesome, Makayla. Well, before we leave, as always, is a huge thank you for coming onto the channel. You're going to get some awesome, cool Ginger Hacker swag for letting me steal a little bit of your time for the night. And I guess last but not least, when it comes into the last piece of advice you can give someone breaking into cyber, what would that advice be?
Search for your jobs by certs or skills, not by titles. I can't tell you the number of pen test jobs I've seen that don't have the title pen tester, don't have anything that says remotely cyber. One of them just said consultant. Like, you don't even know. So when you're searching, put in the cert you have, put in, if you want to look for Splunk, put in Splunk, things like that, because you'll find a lot more jobs that you can apply to. And I mean, job titles are just titles. There's a lot of different job titles that do the same thing. So yeah, I think
100%. My first job at the state, I got my very first job into cyber. They called me a senior information security analyst. And I told my boss, I'm like, hey, we can change that to junior. Like, this is my first role. He's like, no, man. Titles mean nothing. It's just for HR purposes. So, well, awesome, Makayla. Well, hey, channel, thank you guys so much for staying around, checking out this video again. We're rocking out this year on breaking into cyber. And as always, I'll catch you on the next video.